It's a pivotal game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Landry Locker, Cody Stoots. It is S&L. You can find this YouTube Monday through Friday. You can also see it on or hear it on all podcast platforms, however the hell you want to say it. This is a pivotal game, and this is a massive game, and I'm calling this a swing game in the AFC South because the Texans right now, they're feeling pretty good about themselves despite what happened against the Minnesota Vikings when it comes to the big picture point of view, when it comes to winning the division. Do we know whether or not the Texans are one of those contending teams? There's reasonable doubt given what you saw in Minnesota, and there are flaws. But when it comes to the division, given the fact that there's only one win in the entire division and 2 of 3 teams in the division are 0-3, you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, you feel great. You feel great about this situation. And I'm assuming you mean swing because if you swing big right here, you hit the division out of the park and you take care of your business. If you lose, you're right back with the pack of suck that is the AFC South.
Yes, and not only that, I think you have a chance to end the Jags. I think there's a chance Doug Peterson gets fired on Sunday if the Texans win, much like OB did after 4 games when it was kind of stale. It's kind of a little bit of a similar feel. They haven't had as much success in Jacksonville, but you kind of felt like from 18 to 19 into 20 that the Texans were the same exact team, and they were trying to get to that next tier, and it never quite happened, and the flaws hung around. And 4 games into 2020, O'Brien was fired. I feel like that could be the same with Doug Peterson. On the other hand, if the Jags win, they're a game behind the Texans, and all of a sudden you're asking questions about the Texans, and you can't dismiss it to a Minnesota game. So I think this is a massive, 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 massive game for the Texans. And the scary thing for the Texans is I think they could very well lose this game. I think they could. Would I bet on it? I don't know. I'm going to have to look closer at it. But I think the thing that Jacksonville has going for them is what we just said. There's a hell of a lot to gain from a win here. And on top of that, like you're assuming that Indianapolis loses, you're the clear second place team in the division and you're a game out, and you would have the head to head against the Texans. So you talk about like early in the season, we throw out, hyperbole and stuff, and we say it's a must win. And then you have the Jamoke smartass that says, no, it can't be a must win this early. This is a must win for the Jags. And this is going to be as desperate of a team with as much to accomplish as you can possibly face with an 0-3 Jags team.
That's the thing, is it's a desperate team. Doug Peterson's a really good coach. It hasn't looked good in Jacksonville to the level where they expected they were going to get when they got Doug Peterson. But with a team that basically is their season on the line, that's a dangerous team coming to town, a team that knows you, a team that's familiar with you. If this was some other slappy from like the NFC South coming to town and they were 0-3 and you don't play them all the time, it'd be one thing. But Jacksonville has got an opportunity to bounce back and really pull up the nosedive that is their season. The scary part for them, Landry, is I'm not sure they're talented. Like they just don't have enough talent around their team. Yeah, they play bad, but they're also just untalented as a team overall. Like they've got a bunch of middling players across that roster, and they may not have the ability to pull it out. You definitely don't want to be on the wrong end of this one on Sunday.
Yeah, this is a really, really, really big game. Johnny's asking about Joe Mixon. We'll get a better grasp of that when practice starts with reports and stuff. I don't know how close he is or isn't. I just know this is going to be a much tougher game than people are giving it credit for. And you have a chance to either knock out the Jags or keep them alive. And I think if the Texans lose this game, we're really going to have to evaluate this team a lot more closely if we're already not.
Oh, if the Texans lose this game, I think it's very close to sky is falling for the 2024 season. I mean,
sky is falling.
Sky is falling. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to lose to Minnesota, who's one of the better teams in the NFC right now. An 0-3 Jaguars team comes into town and beats you. Serious questions about the direction of where this team was headed in 2024 and how it was built. And DeMeco Ryans talked about it yesterday. You got to go back to the drawing board. You rip the drawing board off the wall and put in a new drawing board, because the direction you were going isn't working. You lose to the Jaguars this Sunday.
Yeah, and I think they very well could. I really do. I'm not close enough to picking the Jags yet. I'm damn sure picking Buffalo. Spoiler alert. I'm damn sure. I damn sure don't think the Texans are in that class right now.
Would you feel different about this matchup if the Texans had if the Texans were 3-0 and the Jags were 0-3, obviously you'd feel different. But like, would you feel like the Jags have a real good shot if the Texans were undefeated?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I do.
But this is more about the Jags bouncing back than you don't think the Texans are very good.
I think it's a desperate team, and I think that the Texans' flaws, I don't think they just completely get eliminated. I think you can eliminate the penalties. I think the overall ability or inability to block is not consistent enough. I think you're too dependent on mixing in the run game. I think you have a vulnerable secondary that there's been a blueprint laid out as to how to attack. That could be Ingram. I could see Ingram having a massive ass game
if he plays
on Sunday. I think this is a division winning ball club right now with the Texans that can maybe flip the switch or get hot. But the one thing that I don't feel good about is something that matters most and something that can completely derail what the Texans got. And here's the other thing, Cody, about this game. It's really almost like facing two L's. And maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, and I know survivor pools don't last long for a reason. I'm chalking Buffalo down as an L. Maybe like before this, in fairness, and before the season started, we were chalking Minnesota down as a dub. So maybe there's that type of element, and maybe the Texans pass rush can get after Josh Allen. But I think you're almost looking you're looking 2-3 in the eyes against the Jags if you lose this game, because I don't think anyone in their right mind, could be wrong, is going to pick the Texans to beat the Buffalo Bills.
So I would be more worried about this Jaguars game if the Texans had like a middling game where they thought that they had some good stuff that, oh, this just didn't go right or that didn't go right. Like, oh, a little bit better team beat us. But the fact that the bottom fell out of this Texans team a couple of days ago, that makes me feel like they're going to be as focused as possible for this one, be dialed in. Even with Jacksonville bouncing back, I still don't feel like there should be a close game.
They haven't played good all season, Cody.
I understand that. But hold on. When the bottom falls out,
like they have, you're treating them like they have.
But Landry, what I'm talking about is they probably ignored some of the warts from the first 2 weeks because there was a dub on the schedule. You don't do that now.
Okay, so you're saying much like the Jags are going in desperate, the Texans are going to have to go in desperate because now they can't sit there and say, oh, well, we can just show up and win. They know that they have to put their best A game out there.
Yes, because the bottom fell out, you're in a better – you would – if you believe in this team, if you believe in DeMeco Ryans, the coaching staff, and some of these players, you're in a better spot from a focus standpoint and a dial-it-in standpoint. Think about how sloppy that game was.
Yeah.
Like, that was – a lot of that's focus. Like,
yeah.
If you can't get focused this week, then we'll know everything we need to know about the potential of this team at the conclusion of the Jaguars game. Because if they play another crappy game and they squeak one out, that's going to be who they are. They lose, then the sky is falling. They handle their business against the Jaguars. Okay, they're back on track. They're capable of refocusing. Now you've got 7 days to figure out how to beat one of the best teams in football in Buffalo. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really, really good point, and I like the way that we talked that out for sure. But Derek is saying it's an important game, but not a must win. I think it's a must win for the Jags. I think it is a 100% must win for the Jags because they're not making up 3 games on the Texans. They're not good enough. But if they win, they're 1 game back, and Texans are going to Buffalo. So you feel pretty good about yourself.
No,
I don't have this good. Or Buffalo's coming here, excuse me. You're playing Buffalo. Buffalo's coming here. They're probably going to be like a 4 or 5 point favorite in Houston. It's going to be something like that. That's what I meant. The Texans, you're in a tough situation, but if you do lose the next 2 games, it's not the end of the season. So I don't think it's a must win for the Texans, but I do think it's a must win for the Jags, just to be clear about that.
Yeah, I would agree with you because there are going to be wholesale changes in Jacksonville if they don't win on Sunday. And today, I don't believe the Jacksonville Jaguars are winning on Sunday. They
you're out there playing.
Oh my gosh,
they didn't get out of Buffalo till 1.
How embarrassing! And we know Shad Khan's a read the news clippings guy, the owner of the Jaguars.
Did you quote from him?
Yeah,
there's a leak that he's pissed.
How embarrassing of a day is it that this? What he called a month ago, the best Jaguars team ever, the most talented Jaguars team ever, goes and gets embarrassed, 3rd worst loss in franchise history. And then when they try to go home to lick their wounds, the plane doesn't work. The plane that he purchased, he bought, he maintains, it doesn't work. How embarrassing for a billionaire.
This could be a big game. So we got plenty of time to get into this. The Texans return to the practice field tomorrow. We got you covered. Live practice reports, S&L Monday through Friday. We got you covered. We'll get closer into this game. We are officially, though, on to Jacksonville. And I think we talked ourselves into both agreeing that this is a massive, massive game for a number of reasons for both of these teams. Be sure to subscribe to S&L. Landry Locker, Cody Stoots channel on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts, we got you covered there. Now let's move on to Steven Nelson. Steven Nelson hates the Texans. Steven Nelson last year, I've said this before.
This is retired cornerback, former Texan Steven Nelson.
The guy who had 5 interceptions last year. Texans don't do what they did last year without him. Always had a little bit of a screw loose. I noticed that when we had him on the radio program a few years ago, and he was asked about being an underdog, and he said, "What, underdog? I'm more like a big name. I don't know what you mean." And then you go look at his Twitter account, you go look at a feature that they did on him in Kansas City, and it's talking about Steven Nelson always embracing the underdog role. So he's got a screw loose. Maybe you need that at the position, but he also hates the Houston Texans now. Let's look at some of the stuff that Steven Nelson had to say about the Texans as they were getting embarrassed in Minnesota.
Yeah, this was Sunday. So he started with a retweet of @Cody_Stoots, which is where I am on Twitter. And he was retweeting the Laramie Tunsil penalties. Now, there were more penalties after this. He didn't retweet the next one, unfortunately, the updated one. But this was when Tunsil had the early issues in the game. But it continues. So an Aaron Wilson tweet, who is on Steven Nelson's podcast quite a bit, talking about the Texans being the king of false starts. Got to clean that up moving forward. Unacceptable. Now, none of this is too inflammatory. You know, he's not being
that's true. They're becoming the kings of false starts. I think that's fair.
He just randomly takes a shot at Vikings corner Byron Murphy, which I found funny, so I wanted to put that one in there. I don't know when cheeks became a descriptor on how good or bad somebody is, but it makes me laugh every time. So then he starts to get going a little bit. Danielle Hunter, spelled incorrectly, expect the fine this week for that cheap shot. Now, I believe this was about the roughing the passer on Sam Darnold, but he keeps going. Spent too much money in marketing ads to be getting y'all ass whipped like this.
Hashtag damn. Damn. Talking about them uniforms now, Steven. Goodness gracious.
I guess he's not a big fan of the H-Town blue uniforms.
Yeah.
So it continues. Rooting for Jonathan Grenard, former teammate of his.
Yeah, they're tight.
The former teammate of his, their lockers were really close to each other in the locker room last year. And then,
wow.
LT covering the
spread. He's not a Tunsil guy, huh?
He does not seem like a Laramie Tunsil guy. No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Maybe Texans fans will like him then. Goodness.
Because the Laramie Tunsil.
They might be able to rally behind you on that one.
He's public enemy number 1 right now. So then Texans hype train needs to stop this game. Was so sloppy as hell. First 2-week wins. It's below average teams. A good team spanked that ass today. Hashtag Texans.
I think he's right about that. I actually don't disagree with him on that.
Correct. And then Danielle Hunter ain't did shit.
Right. I don't know why Danielle's getting this stray. But
worth noting, Danielle Hunter, number 2 in quarterback pressure rate in the league right now. And then he tweeted out a picture. And it said spanked.
Okay.
Spanked hashtag Texans. And then it's a picture of Milk Duds, which he's called DeMeco Ryan's Milk Dud Man before. A belt and then a penalty flag. He also later referred to Brian Flores as king of the Milk Dud Men. So maybe that's just a bald guy thing that he calls all the bald guys Milk Duds.
Okay. I think he did it after he did it to DeMeco.
Correct.
It's almost like when he called out people for not doing charity stuff and then he was doing it the next day. I think he kind of tried to lump someone in there to like kind of cover it. But Steven Nelson clearly hates the Texans. He's clearly bitter. He's also a little bit delusional, and there's a lot more where this came from.
Gets more. 34-7 with that amount of talent is crazy. I don't believe Lovey had a performance like that.
Man, come on.
He also went on to say, last year they didn't manage us health-wise. We were effing hurt. This is early to get they ass whooped. A lot of wasted money.
Yeah.
The spelling's not great. But
yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Then he quote tweeted me.
Damn, are y'all brothers or something?
I don't know how he ends up.
I didn't know you and Steven Nelson were so tight.
He quote tweeted.
Get him on the show, dude.
He quote tweeted the video of Cade Stover getting run over by Jonathan Grenard. And he went on to say, can't let good players go over ego. It will hunt you. LOL, good stuff, JG.
Okay.
So Steven Nelson, not a big Texans fan.
Yeah, and I mean, look, that's his truth.
One more.
He's sitting and watching just like us.
You either coaching it or allowing it, and then a finger pointing emoji.
Okay. Yeah, there he goes. Steven Nelson. Yeah, he's bitter. He's petty. He's always had a little bit of a screw loose. I think that's what makes him him. But his services last year were warranted. I don't think that they made like some mistake getting rid of Steven Nelson for Kamari Lassiter. And quite frankly, he was getting a little bit out of control. So, yeah, that's interesting. I do wonder what Steven Nelson's goal is here. He pushes the podcast. The podcast is kind of a little bit buried. If he, in all seriousness, if he wants to push the podcast, he wants to talk, he should come on the locker room because I think it would help. It's a local digital following, and he can or go on Cody Stoots, and we can chop it up a little bit. Why not? Come on down, Steven. See what happens. We'll talk. I like milk duds, man. I like milk duds. I don't know if you do or not. I actually think it's an underrated candy. For sure. But I mean, a lot of the stuff that he said is true. And when you get your ass kicked the way they did, you do reevaluate. And am I completely dismissing the Texans as being a contender? No. But I think that right now I'll put it this way. The Texans got two matchups right now. And it's a fluid process. Things change. What's true today will not be true tomorrow in an NFL season. There's a lot of variables, a lot of reasons why. There's development, all that. And we saw the Texans become a better team last year. Here's my thing, though. There's two opponents in the next 2 weeks that we're talking about. We're talking about the Jags. We're talking about the Bills. I think they're closer to the Jags than they are the Bills. That's the way that I would put where the Texans are right now. Now, does that mean that? Yes. Does that mean that can't change? No, but I think they're a lot closer to 0-3 Jacksonville than they are 3-0 Buffalo. I think there's a completely different level. And the other thing about it is,
now hold on, let me ask you a question. Before the season, your kind of your expectations, your projection of what the Texans were they closer to Jacksonville or were they closer to Buffalo?
Well, I really didn't know what Buffalo would look like without Diggs. So I do know that Buffalo is a battle-tested team when it comes to a large portion of their roster, but I didn't know, like, were they going to go up or were they going to go down without Diggs? They don't appear to really miss him as much, and Josh Allen appears to be like elevated. And quite frankly, they can run the ball like that. Like Buffalo had a problem like early in their process where they were relying on Josh Allen and they couldn't run the ball. They took James Cook in the same draft where the Texans took John Mechie, and they've completely revived the manner in which they run the ball and really the dependency that they have on Josh Allen. So I really didn't know about Buffalo. I did think that Jacksonville and Indianapolis were threats to the Texans in the division. So it's really not necessarily an overreaction to say that about the Texans being closer to the Jags than the Bills, because
it's more about the Bills.
Ago, I would have said Jags too.
It's more about the Bills flying to like the top of the NFL through 3 weeks than, the Texans kind of finding a little bit lower expectations than what people wanted for them. Like, yeah. I think we're and obviously close to the Jags right now is close to the bottom of the league because they're one of the worst teams in the league right now.
Yeah,
the record tells you that. The performances tell you that.
And here's the thing: like, get on the roller coaster. Like, there's some. This is not baseball. Like, I don't live in the baseball mindset where after every game we sit here and say, well, it's early. We got to see what happens. Nah, I'm going to react. Okay. I'm going to try to rationally react. And I'm going to try to rationally explain my feelings. And it might change over the course of a season. So if you're looking for some like weirdo, I always think it's weird when people that create content or are on the radio, they'll go on the radio and they'll say, well, it's a long season. Yes, it is. We get it. Well, you can't react one way or the other. I heard someone the other day on talking about the Texans. It doesn't matter what you and I say. They said it like 8 times. And it was like, what? Why are you talking then? Why are you talking then, my friend? Like, what's going on there? Why are you even saying anything? So yeah, it's going to be emotional, but I think it's actually level-headed to say the Texans right now are closer to the Jags than they are the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, respect the body of work the Bills have, regardless of what it is. They've been a couple plays away from being to multiple Super Bowls. Yeah. So respect the process that it takes to get to where Josh Allen is, where CJ Stroud's trying to get, and where the Texans are trying to get. I think we owe a little bit of respect to that. It can be completely sideswiped, and it can be taken out, and a lot of things can happen, but we got to respect that process.
Look, the first 3 weeks of this season for the Texans, and then the entire body of work last year should tell you there's a lot. Every single one of these games is important. There are a lot of games last year that if you flip those because maybe the Texans came in a little flat or kicked too many field goals, like say Atlanta or Carolina, you flip those 2 losses to wins, the Texans are in a different playoff spot. Maybe they have a different result there in the playoffs because they face a different opponent, so on and so forth. Like 3 weeks in, like every one of these games matters in what's a loaded AFC. You want to tell me it doesn't matter as much in the NFC? I'll listen to you. But in a loaded AFC, you gotta stack as many of these as possible. And this early slate for the Texans, that we believed the schedule wasn't as difficult here the first 6-8 weeks as the back end of it, you got to stack these wins.
Exactly.
You got to stack these. They all matter.
Big opportunity, big game, man. Big game on Sunday. And then a big game after that. And then if you go 3-1 against the Jags and you got a chance to take down the Bills, then you kind of wipe away that Minnesota one. So it's going to be, I mean, it's an awesome sport. It's an awesome season. It's awesome covering the Texans. We're very happy that you're with us every morning on S&L. Do you have anything else to add about Texans and Jags before I talk about, shout out to Dave Chappelle, when keeping it real goes wrong in H-Town?
No, we'll talk a lot more about this matchup and about this game and throughout the course of the week. And I mean, I'll say this. I tweeted about it last night. The Texans have CJ Stroud. The Jags have a $275 million mistake at quarterback.
Yeah, well, they also had CJ Stroud and Sam Darnold. But, hey, I'm moving on to Jacksonville. We'll move past that. By the way, I thought the craziest stat, and I guess it's not that crazy, but it was just kind of a factoid that someone threw out there. You know how they have the For You section on Twitter?
Uh-huh.
The For You where it like shows stuff that maybe you would be interested in. There was like a Carolina fan during the Texans game that brought this up, and I was like, whoa. Sam Darnold, younger than Joe Burrow.
Oh. Whoa.
Yeah. Sam Darnold, younger than Joe Burrow by months.
Well, now Sam Darnold's
a half year.
Well, now Sam Darnold's fixed and he'll never be bad again. That's a
lot of battle testing though for that age. Like for how we look at Burrow, that's a lot of battle testing.
Well, it's like that kid the Jets have who's a running back. He's 20.
Yeah,
he's going to be on his 3rd contract and not even be 30.
Remember Amobi Okoye with the Texans? That was like the Madden pick a guy. Hey, I'm just saying. Okay, we'll move on real quick.
Patrick Willis, right after Amobi Okoye.
All right. So when keeping it real goes wrong in H-Town, I want to bring this up because I think it's kind of funny. One of my favorite Dave Chappelle skits is when keeping it real goes wrong. It's when someone thinks that they're doing something and they're actually a lot of times doing the opposite, or they're doing something that's kind of backfire. I think we're seeing this with the Texans in multiple layers, and it's in the locker room, not the Landry Locker room on YouTube, but in the Texans locker room, and it's in the media. And there are a couple of guys, and I don't consider one of them to really be in the media. I don't think Texans Cap's a media guy. I think Texans Cap's kind of a content / analytics type of guy.
Resource.
Yeah, resource. Excellent resource, elite resource. Shout out to Texans Cap. But let me ask you this, Cody. Let's pretend that I'm a teenage kid. Okay, let's pretend that I'm a teenage kid. Might not be too hard to imagine, so shut up. But let's pretend I go to HEB, and let's pretend that I decide, you know what? I'm going to steal some cookies, and I'm going to steal some soda from
kind of
HEB.
cookies are you stealing?
I'm stealing those chocolate chip ones, like the chocolate chips. So I'm stealing a whole thing of those chocolate chip cookies, and I'm stealing a soda right there at the front, and I'm walking out of HEB. If I get caught by the security person at HEB, and they tell me, "Hey, you're in trouble. This is theft. You know, you're getting a Class C misdemeanor." And they take me to the back, and all of a sudden I'm getting written up. If my defense is, Well, you know what? I actually did this Saturday and Sunday too. Today's Monday. I actually got away with this. I actually got away with this Saturday and Sunday. So I don't know why I'm getting in trouble for this on Monday. How stupid am I going to look?
pretty bad.
I'm going to look like a dumbass, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So why would Titus Howard come out and say, they flagged us for illegal formation? Because we all agree, DeMeco Ryan said it yesterday that they were lining up illegally, right?
He said, we know where to line up. We got to line up correctly.
Yes. So we all agree that it's illegal formation, right? So why would you then bring up, well, we were actually doing the same thing, a few other plays. Furthermore, Kunkel puts up these, and Texans Cap put up these pictures where it's 3 illegal formations, and they're sitting there saying, hey, if you're going to call it here, you can't call it here. If I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars, I am sending that to the league, and now all of a sudden, it is a point of emphasis because you snitched yourself out. This is a prime example of when keeping it real goes wrong. This is one of the dumbest things that I have ever seen in my entire life. Like, you think Tiger Woods, when he got caught cheating, he was like when she only knew about one woman, you think Tiger Woods said, well, Elon, I actually banged that waitress over there at Waffle House before, and I got away with it there. And then, I was at a strip club, and I paid $5,000 to go in the back, and I got away with it then. So you can't get mad at me now. This is what are they doing? Like, how does this look at this? That's 3 illegal formations.
So
three illegal formations right there.
Illegal formation number 1, not called.
Okay.
Illegal formation number 2, not called.
Okay.
Illegal formation number 3 is called.
Okay, so you're basically saying, you know what? They only called it once. They should have called it 3 times. Like, what are you accomplishing by this? And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, they're doing this the whole time. It's wild that you're saying this. Now, I get the philosophy. Well, you got to call the game consistently. That's fine. This is a formation, and you're bringing attention to it. This is the ultimate keeping it real goes wrong. I don't understand what is being accomplished here.
I actually disagreed with where they felt like Tunsil was lined up incorrectly and calling, and like they should have called on 1 and 2. Like, I felt in the third picture that we showed a second ago, or when you go look at it on Kunkel's Twitter account, thought Tunsil was lined up in St. Paul. They're playing in Minneapolis. Like, the other 2, he felt like he was kind of close. Like, it may not be, and Titus said this, he said it's a bigger problem on the road than at home. It cannot be an issue on Sunday. Like, if they line up incorrectly on Sunday, I'm going to pull my hair out. It cannot be an issue on Sunday.
But don't you look closer for it now after you say stuff like this? I don't know how much these quotes go. But if you put out Titus Howard saying, "Hey, we're actually doing this more than they're actually calling it," and then you're putting pictures of 3 illegal formations, and you're saying they only called 1, like, if I'm a referee and I'm aware of this, I'm watching it as close as possible. You're not going to get away with anything.
We know how officials act. I mean, we've seen it for years with umpires, but it's happened in football time and time again. We know how officials act. They are human. They don't like to be told how to do their job. They don't like to be told they're doing things wrong. And if the NFL sends out a little memo to whatever crew has the Texans this week, and they got to look for it even closer, it gives you that little, chance for a little bit additional chance for error on the Texans offensive line. And right now, as bad as they're playing, they need every little advantage they can get.
Yeah. I mean, this is, I don't get what was being accomplished by this. It just,
I like the idea that a Jaguars person's going to see Will Kunkel's tweet and send it to the league, and that's going to cost the Texans.
No,
I'm blaming Kunkel if they lose Sunday.
No, I don't know if it's an idea. It's just like, what do you like? Even if, like, let's say that you're trying to present your case, it's the dumbest defense I've ever heard.
I do think
like, if he showed that he wasn't lined up in the legal formation, that's defense. But you're showing that they're doing it more often.
I do think that Laramie and Titus both saying that the league is not doing a good job with that. There's no bit there, that doesn't help you going forward. I feel like that puts, like you're saying, extra emphasis on you. Yeah. Actually, we as the NFL think we're doing a good job, and so we're actually going to be more strict on it.
That's what I'm saying.
Because If you think we were inconsistent, well, let's be strict to make sure we are more consistent.
Yeah, I don't really understand what the deal is. DeBully is swarming the super chat.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Can y'all please drill Slowick on Thursday? Pause. Good Lord, what the hell does that mean? What do you want me to do? What are we drilling Slowick for? I don't want to drill any man. But what are we drilling Slowick for?
I mean, there's some people that are upset with the play calling, but I think some of the play calling is you got to start with the 5 guys that block before you do that.
Yeah.
Did you get the Jake super chat?
The Jake, Jake's in there too. Shout out to JU swarming the super chat.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
I put $100 on it, Landry. Put your money where your mouth is. You want me to bet on the? All right, we'll see. We'll see. The Bills.
Landry's retired from sports betting.
Yeah, not on Bet US. Bet US, I'm doing my thing, baby.
Yeah.
Although I did lose $200, so yeah, that would put you in retirement when you lose $200 on a bet. Not fun.
We get something going for Jake. We get something going for Jake.
I'm down 200 from that Vikings. Y'all gassed me up on that. I think it might have been you too, Jake. So you owe me 200. Just kidding. But yeah, so to put a bow on the show, and we appreciate y'all for coming through. S&L 9 a.m. Tuesday through Thursday, 8 a.m. reaction Monday. And then we have
4 p.m. Friday,
4 p.m. final reaction to the injury report. But Jags Texans, big swing game. Steven Nelson, petty as hell, kind of funny as hell at the same time. And when keeping it real goes wrong, what the worst attorneys in the history of ever. You want to talk about the dream team? The nightmare team would be Will Kunkel, Texans cap, and Titus Howard trying to defend the Texans' actions. There's Johnny Cochran, Robert Shapiro, Barry Scheck, F. Lee Bailey. By the way, rest in peace to F. Lee Bailey, the official legal advisor of my radio show at one point. Robert Kardashian hired just so he couldn't testify. Barry Scheck, all these guys. Will Kunkel, Texans cap, Titus Howard, the worst defense team of all time.
Scheck's the only one that's still alive, right?
I think Shapiro died.
Oh, maybe he's still alive. Yeah.
He's on this Menendez brothers thing. You've been watching that on Netflix? Pretty cool.
I have not.
It's old, though. You might not like it. It's too deep for you. You're more of like a a comic book dude.
Okay, cool. I've been watching Industry. That show's wild.
I mean, it's just crazy, dude. I mean,
the Menendez brothers killed their parents, right?
Spoiler, yes.
Spoiler, the event's 30 years old.
So I'm gonna go eat at a diner after this. And after I eat at the diner, like if they don't charge me for my drink, I'm just gonna be like, hey. Or if they charge me for my drink, I'm gonna be like, hey, y'all didn't charge me last time, so why are you charging me this time? What's going on here? Hey, let me show you the picture of the checks side by side.
To be fair, you have called a restaurant before and said, "Hey, I didn't pay."
To be unfair, I was so drunk because I drank so much at the restaurant that I forgot to pay. But I did call them and say, "Hey,
I'll give you my card over the phone," and they said no thanks.
But let's be clear. Let's be clear, because there's people saying, how do you get that drunk? Well, first of all, it's possible. Second of all, here's what happened. It's one of those places where you walk to the front to pay first. Yeah. You don't get the check at the table. But yeah, that's what that is. DeBully didn't like the pause joke. Shout out to you, man. It's just kind of a joke, man. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Practice tomorrow, off day today. Jags coming to town. Then you got the Bills. But DeMeco's going to speak tomorrow. The locker room will be open. Maybe we'll hear from Tunsil and Titus Howard. Don't know. Hopefully the defense is a little better than, hey, we're doing this all the time. We're not just doing this one time. Hopefully that kind of echoes what DeMeco said, and we'll see what happens with Steven Nelson. I'd love Steven Nelson to come on and cut up. I think it would be kind of entertaining, to say the least. What's he call it? Sure. Pod juice. I stopped listening to his podcast because he was smacking gum into the mic, and I was like, all right, I can't do this no more.
You know anybody that's ever done that on a radio show?
I did that my first radio show back in college. That was I was a kid. Appreciate y'all.
Cow chewing his cud.
Appreciate y'all for coming through. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon.
On to Jacksonville.